Hello, everyone. Welcome to Combox TV. And for the first time, we're basically going to cover WPL on Combox. On Good Areas Live, it's been done multiple of times, but now for Combox, it's going to be a completely different experience. So I'll be your host, Deepak Goel. I have my own channel, First Empire, and it's majorly on Indian men's cricket. But for me, also, this is a completely different ballgame altogether. That's why we have two experts with us. Estelle, she is already an expert in this, quite a name as far as women cricket journalism is concerned. Along with that, she has amazing opinions about everything related to cricket. And then we have Shan. So he also is a pretty familiar face on this channel. So they both will be basically covering all the five teams, different aspects of it. So we have decided to basically go through six different sections in this. We will be covering the history, the overall strategy of the franchisee, their strengths and weaknesses, overall vision of the franchisee, and in the end, we'll basically discuss about the players to watch out for. So this way, uh, hopefully, we're going to dedicate around 10, 12 minutes to every team. And in the end, 15, 20 minutes, we'll try to take up all your questions. So to begin with, I think we can start with Mumbai Indians and anything that we should share about the history. So I'll start with Isil, and since she already has a lot to share on this.
Yeah, I mean, what can you say about Mumbai, right? They've in the short history of the WPL, they've been the most successful team. They've won two of the titles out of three. So again, I think this season as well, I don't know how, but they've managed to basically retain the kind of the winning core of those teams, right? So they'll be
Yes.
definitely a force to watch out for. Looking at their history, um, what I think they've done well in the past is that they've had one player who is basically two players in one, right? They've had at least
Hmm.
three overseas players like that in Amelia Kerr,
Yeah.
Haley
Yeah.
Matthews, and Natsiva Brandt. So that is their biggest strength, is that in their top five, they've got three players who can also bowl, the four overs. Historically, looking at how like women's cricket has gone as well, all rounders have had a massive role to play in the success of international teams as well. So I think they've used that formula to good effect in the past.
Totally agree on this. So, Shan, anything you would like to add here? Because I think that's a very valid point. This is how Australia has also ruled the world. They have almost eight to nine all rounders also at certain
Yeah.
point of time in their team. So, anything from your side that
I
you would like to share?
Yeah, I just think they've also invested in young talent, right? Like we've seen the likes of an Amanjot Kaur or even a Sajana Sajeevan, who's actually not had as much of a role yet. She had that famous last ball six to win a crucial game for them when they needed 5 runs of the last ball. But I think even apart from that, it's just the fact that they keep investing in younger talent. They've also got this wicketkeeper called Kamalini, who's done well for India at the under 19 level, and she's probably going to open the batting with Haley Matthews this year. So I think that's one thing they're sort of going to be different from the previous three seasons in terms of the history. They had Yastika Bhatia who would open with Haley Matthews for quite a bit of this.
Yes.
And yeah, the most important thing has to be the flexibility, right? I mean, having three proper all rounders in the top five, it just doesn't get much better than that, I think.
Exactly, and to be honest, quite different from their men's cricket strategy, where they have proper
Hmm.
batters in their top five. Hardly any
Yeah.
all-rounder. I think Will Jacks is the only one. So here they have a very
Hmm.
different strategy, something which has worked for them. That's why they have two titles out of three already,
Yeah.
and looking good for the fourth one. Or like, what do you think so can be the overall strategy here? Like, SL, if your opinion, like anything we can see as a change from MI, or they're going to basically stick to their old winning formula?
I think looking at the strategy they went with at the auction, they were looking to retain as many of those players from the previous squad as possible, right? And why not? Because they've had that success um, with those type of players. The only thing I would say is, given that the game is changing, and you spoke rightly about like the men's team, right, where you have a lot of pure batters in that top five, top six. With time, I think the women's game will also move in that direction where you have more specialists, right? You have players who are brought in for specific roles. So, for example, someone like Amelia Kerr, at the moment, she's a massively influential and important all rounder, right? But with time, if she can't up her scoring rate and really be that impact player with the bat, I think she will drop down the order as well in coming seasons. But this time around, they managed to buy her in the auction. And I think, as Cheyenne said, they've also invested in younger players, right? So they have one eye on the future. I don't think much will change in terms of strategy because they've got basically the same core group of players. They're only kind of the concern I would say is, are they relying too much on those all round options, and what happens if they don't come off?
Perfect. And if even if you like look at the data, and the only major concern for them was power play batting, like where, as Shayan also pointed out, so instead of Yastika Bhatika, they have gone for the younger talent this time around. So, what according to you, Shayan, can actually be their strengths this season? Something which obviously the continuity is there, but apart from that, something which we can see on a more consistent basis from MI.
Yeah, I just think with Mumbai Indians, their bowling through the middle overs is always a really strong option, right? They have Amelia Kerr, obviously, and with Saikia Ishak is also there as another left-arm finger spinner. Hayley Matthews can bowl in the power play as well, in fact, but they can also use her in the middle overs when needed. And Nat Brunt is a pretty good middle overs bowler whenever they require that. And I just think they don't really lack options at any point. They have multiple spin and pace options available to them. So based on the situation, they can always adapt, and a lot of it is going to depend on the grounds that they're going to play on, right? So they're going to play in DY Patil and they'll play in Vadodara. DY Patil seems to suit pacers more, but spinners actually bowl more overs there, if that makes sense. But in the other ground, that is the Vadodara ground, the spinners have a better performance than the pacers, and it's more of an even ground when we look at the proportion of overs bowled. So I think Mumbai are very smart in that sense, where we know with the men's team they're a very professional unit, and they always, they back data and they know what they're doing. They usually try to make logical decisions. So I think I don't really see any major flaw with their bowling or their batting. Probably with the batting, yes. You could argue that their power play batting is a bit more reliant on Hayley Matthews, who hasn't always gone all hammer and tongue the way she can in international cricket. For some reason, in the WPL, I don't think she has been able to replicate that. But if they can do that, I think that solves a lot of issues. And Amelia Kerr's strike rate, as Estelle said, I think that's also a little bit of a concern, relatively speaking. But if she can, come back to her best as a batter, that would really help.
Totally agree. Is there one major change in the leadership group also? Like the legendary England uh, captain coach Edwards is now gone. I think she has taken up the
Yeah,
international duties. So now
correct.
they have gone with Lisa, who was the assistant coach with DC for 3 years. So,
Hmm.
and also a lot of shake-up as far as the overall core of the coaching is concerned. So, will that bring in something new on table, or you actually see it as a matter of concerns? Because something which has worked for them this year, somehow it would not be a continuity.
Actually think that Lisa Keightley might be a massively influential figure in terms of, like, in a good way for Mumbai, because she had a successful career for Australia. She's coached in multiple positions. I think maybe her last one was with Sydney Thunder, right? And she's known as someone who does kind of give initiative to players a lot, which is something that you like to see, right? You like to see players making their decisions out there in the middle instead of having everything being kind of fed to them, right? So still got Julan Goswami in the coaching lineup as well, and she'll have a massive influence on the bowlers, and the mindset again, right? And that's probably one of the biggest things that Mumbai have nailed, is that mindset, because they've got so many experienced players that even the younger players are able to perform under them because they've got that kind of environment. And I don't think that's going to change much under the new leadership.
Totally agree on this, because somebody who has done with DC also as a assistant coach, I
Hmm.
think shows he brings a lot of experience on table, and also with all her years in Australian cricket, I think there's a lot of leadership quality she brings on table. Along with that, Shen, like what exactly you think is the franchisee vision? So like if you would have observed Mumbai in last 3 seasons, so what can we expect from them going forward from a overall franchisee vision? Because if we talk about the men's cricket, there's a very clear cult following that they have now, and they've built it over the years. They have backed captains for a longer period of time. So we'd see that similar kind of pattern here also, or we see a lot of experimentation maybe post this season or maybe a couple of seasons down the line.
No, I think it's very similar to the men's team in some ways, where you have a strong Indian captain who's, actually a World Cup winning captain now in Harmanpreet Kaur.
Yeah.
So And they've not really tinkered around too much. They've basically gone with this exact same team, even though there are other teams that have also, Delhi were very consistent in the last 3 seasons. RCB won a title, so they've shaken up their teams a little more. But Mumbai haven't done that at all. Mumbai have basically gone with the same team because they know that gets them success, and there is good reason for it. Although there are some very interesting points that some people are bringing in the comments with, Haley Matthews not having played competitive cricket for a long while. I think that is a very fair point to say. And even Nat Silverbrunt hasn't actually been in great form in the WBBL. So these are the sorts of things that I think might play a part in, how they actually play. But at the end of the day, you have to back quality, right? Because
Yep.
you can't just always pick players on form. I know form is very important, but I think this is the thing with Mumbai, where they back young talent, but they also have a good mix of those experienced players, and there is proper role clarity. You know what every player is supposed to do at different points of the game. So I
I
think there's
think
no real issues with that.
totally resonate with that. And also, that's a fair point because Nat Silverbrand, for that matter, I think from a World Cup standpoint, also, she must be thinking since she was the captain of England, so
Exactly.
lot was resting on her. So it's been pretty hectic, pretty tiring, I would say, last few
Season.
months for her too.
Yeah.
And I think a lot to look out for because she's already the top scorer of WPL, overall top scorer,
Exactly.
as far as I think. So
Yeah.
three players is still from Mumbai Indians to watch out for on your list.
Yeah, I would say number one would be Nat Silverbrand. I know, as you guys mentioned, hasn't been in the kind of best kind of form, but she was their best batter in the last season, and I believe like 12 to 13 wickets as well, right?
Yes.
And I think just to go back to something that Cheyenne mentioned as well, if you look at those all-round options that they have, their biggest strength is that they're not you can't pigeonhole them into like power play bowlers or death bowlers, right? They've got the flexibility to bowl in different stages of the game, and I think with Silverbrand, that's another advantage that Mumbai will have, right? She has bowled with the new ball for England. She can bowl in the middle overs and is a wicket-taking option. And of course, with the bat, we know that she's an explosive player, right? Second one has to be, I think, Harmanpreet. Harmanpreet is coming into this tournament, two titles, major titles last year, the two biggest titles on offer in the women's game, right? The WPL and the Women's World Cup. So she'll be full of confidence. And we've seen, I think, before 2025, I think the years preceding that, there was a lot of chat about, she produced this one great innings against Australia in that World Cup in 2017 and hasn't
17.
really, kicked on from there. But she's been producing more and more of those impactful knocks and kind of going big in the way that only Harmanpreet can, right? So I
Exactly.
think she will be massive for them as well. And thirdly, I think someone like Shabnim Ismail is going to be important because we've spoken about kind of the top five, right? But if you
Exactly.
look at that lineup, maybe death bowling might be something that is a bit of a concern for them.
Yes.
And Shabnim comes in with experience and that kind of pace that can rattle batters. So I think she will be a key part in kind of completing that bowling attack for Mumbai.
Do you think so? Like she not being playing for South Africa is going to make much of a difference as far as a form is concerned, continuity is concerned, because fast bowling is a different skill altogether, and it's a very, I would say, difficult skill also. So will that be a
Yeah,
factor here, or
it has to be, right? I don't think you can say that it's not going to have an impact at all. She's had a decent run. I wouldn't say a great run in the WBBL as well. I'm just looking at her numbers.
yes,
Just one wicket hauls right throughout, right? But you have to back quality, as Cheyenne said, right? You have to
yes,
back players of that kind of caliber, knowing that they will come through in franchise tournaments.
excellent. So Shan, what would be your take or your overall rating on the scale of 10 if you have to evaluate Mumbai? So do you see them in top two, or this time it will be a little difficult?
Yeah, I think they should be in the top two at least. I mean, at least is hard to say because other teams have also done a pretty good job in certain aspects. But yeah, I would say Mumbai will be in the top two at least. I've actually said that UPW I think is the best team from all the squads, and that's a bit of a spoiler because we have to talk about them eventually. But I think Mumbai should still be in the top two for me. UP and then Mumbai as of now.
Excellent. And any player from your side to watch out for as far as Mumbai is concerned?
I just want to think, they've invested a lot of money in Sajana Sajeevan, right? And, she bowls like, she hasn't bowled much in the WPL yet, and she only faces like 7 balls per innings. So I want to see the best of her. Like, what can they bring out of her in, crucial situations, or not even just that, maybe in a higher usage role, maybe they send her higher up the order or something like that. I think it will be interesting to see what they can do with her. And obviously, I think Kamalini, having to open the innings in a big tournament like the WPL, that will be interesting because that tells us about the strength of Indian cricket's future. I think that will be something to watch out for. And just in general, I think probably Amelia Kerr's strike rate is a good point that is still brought up. I'm bringing that up again because I think that's something I've also been noticing in women's ODIs as well, where somehow her strike rate graph has gone a bit down. And if she can, come back to her best, I think that will be really interesting to watch.
Totally agree with you. And moving on to our next team, RCB, the team to, I think, watch out for every year. And 2024 champion winning side, but a lot different side from that in even 25, I would say. And now, further, they have parted ways with some of their marquee players, looking a pretty young side. And if you look at them from top to bottom, a lot of promise, but a lot of new faces also. Or I would say relatively less tested faces there. So if we go back to their history again, Estelle, so any particular points you would like to highlight about the kind of history that they've had as a women franchisee?
Probably the team with the biggest kind of support, isn't it? I mean, when they did finally get through to that title in 2024, I say finally because the men's team was waiting for that as
Exactly.
well, right? It was a massive moment, I think, for Bangalore and for that franchise as a whole. The thing with RCB, and we saw this last season, was like Mumbai have been strong in all 3 seasons, right? DC have been strong in all 3 seasons.
Yeah.
RCB is perhaps the next best team in terms of personnel, but they've been very inconsistent. They've been up and down, right? They've been good at times and really bad at times. I think last season they lost like 5 matches in a row or something,
And
which were relatively close.
And they
yes,
started off
exactly.
with a winning note, on a winning note, I think, right? They won the first couple of games and then they just started
Yep.
losing. Yeah.
So their kind of title defense never really got off the ground in that sense because it didn't seem like they were one of the best teams, midway through that tournament. So they are a difficult team to kind of look back and predict what will happen because they have shown so much inconsistency despite having, they've had like a strong core group of players right throughout. Like they've had the big names, and I'm sure we'll get into it later, but I think the loss of Perry is going to be quite decisive for them.
Yes. And Shan, like considering that Perry has always done the heavy lifting for them, so she has kind of, I think, secured their middle overs and also, along with Richa Ghosh, has, I think, given some strength to them in the death overs
End up.
as well.
Yeah.
And we know that she's been able to bowl certain decisive spells for them in the past.
Exactly.
So now that force is not with them anymore. So how much would that impact their strategy, and what should be the overall strategy this time around? Since they've already brought in some very good all rounders, like they have
Nadine de Klerk,
Grace. Yes, they have Nadine.
Grace Harris. Yeah.
Grace Harris is there. So what do you think so is going to be their strategy for this season?
I think they have to pack up their batting a bit more right now. Simply because of the fact that they don't have Perry, they have to play both Georgia Wall and Grace Harris. I think if Perry was there, you were probably going to pick one of them. But now both of them have to play, and Nadine also has to play. So that's 3 of your players right there. And of course, their overseas bowler is probably going to be Lauren Bell, the fast bowler Lauren Bell. Or the other option could be if they don't want to go with Lauren Bell, they can pick Lindsay Smith as their left arm finger spinner and go with Arundhati as their pacer. Or they have lots of combinations, lots of options in their bowling actually, which is something which is their vision in some ways, which we'll come to a bit later. But I think in terms of the general strategy, they might have to rely on Smriti doing a bit more of the heavy lifting in terms of batting through the innings, which we know is not always ideal in T20 cricket. You want everybody to, maximize every phase, go hammer and tong and all of those things. But the way this particular team is constructed, I think she might have to play that anchor's role. And then Georgia Wall, of course, is more of an attacking batter. Grace Harris is known, she's famous for hitting sixes and everything, right? And then you have Nadine de Klerk, Richa Ghosh towards the back end. So you have enough batting talent, but you need someone who can play those situations really smartly. And I think obviously Smriti is the most experienced player in this team, so they'll really bank on her to be able to do that.
Like considering we've seen that Grace Harris has opened in WBBL also, and
Yeah,
as compared to that, Wallace little relatively inexperienced. So, will there
yeah,
be any temptation to like maybe push her for opening slot? But then obviously you kind of weaken your middle order a lot more, which is little
exactly.
inexperienced right now. So,
Yeah.
what would be the strategy considering that what we have seen Harris do over the years? So, what do you think should be the strategy overall?
See, even Grace Harris is coming back from a long injury layoff, right? She didn't participate in the Women's World Cup last year, and I think what they can do is, from the numbers that I looked up, Grace Harris was doing pretty well in the middle order when she was playing in England, the domestic T20 competition there, as well as the 100. So if they can fix her at number 4, Grace Harris at number 4, and they open with Smriti and Wall, and one down could be this player called Gautami Nayak, who's done pretty well in the Maharashtra Premier League, has played in the same team as Smriti Mandhana, it seems.
They both
So,
open, I guess.
yeah, they both open together, exactly. And they also have the option of Dayal and Hemlatha, but I think uh, her form hasn't really been that good in the WPL, so they might just go ahead and give an opportunity to Gautami Nayak, which is fine. I think every team has one of those, domestic Indian players, and you can't really predict how they're going to perform till you actually see them play in the WPL because the quality difference is massive. And apart from that, so if we have number 4, we have Grace Harris, and we have that top 3. Then from number 5 onwards, you have Richa Ghosh, you have Nadine de Klerk, and then what was the other player that they can pick? I'm so
I think they
sorry.
can have Pooja Vastakar also is coming back
Pooja
from
Vastakar,
injury.
Yeah,
yes.
if
I'm
she's
so sorry.
fit, yeah.
That was the name slipping from my mind. Yes, exactly. But even she is coming back from a long injury layoff, and I don't really know if she's definitely going to start because, I mean, who knows right now? We will find out today, I think. But if she doesn't start, that might cause some issues for RCB as well in terms of the balance.
Yeah, I think the same can be said for Shriyanka Patil, isn't it? Again,
Yeah,
someone who's
exactly.
coming back after injury. So they're going to have a few, I think, concerns in that department because it's not the easiest thing having like players who you're not sure where they are, right, in terms
Yeah,
of form and where they stand. I
exactly.
think we have lost Deepak, have we?
Yeah. So basically, if RCB have Pooja, Grace Harris, and Shriyanka, 3 players who are going to be pretty important to how their team is constructed, all coming back from an injury layoff. So you don't really know how that's going to pan out, but I think they've done a pretty good job, especially with assembling the bowling, because I was watching their auction videos and it's basically what they were focusing on. They really wanted
Yeah.
to invest in the bowling, and Smriti actually I think said something that resonated with that. She's like, we've already invested a certain amount in the batters, right? When they retained Smriti, Richa, and Perry, of course, who is not playing this season, but for the long term, obviously it makes sense to retain her any day of the week, right? But I think just for that reason, they've invested a lot in the bowling. They have lots of options, but batting, I still think there are some aspects where the other teams can take advantage of and try and exploit their weaknesses in those aspects.
Yeah, because if you look at the batting lineup that you named, right, they've
Yeah,
got the power. There's no
yeah,
doubt
and they
about
have
that.
batting
They've
depth
got
as
the
well. They have
yeah.
obviously players like Shriyanka and Radha till number 8, number 9.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, if they do opt to go for Arundhati instead of Lauren Bell and play Lindsay Smith, then Arundhati adds a bit of batting as well, right?
Yeah,
What I was going to say is like they've got the power, but are those players going to kick on consistently? And I think the point you made about Smithy having to maybe
exactly.
be that player who kind of bats through or gives that
Yeah,
stability to the lineup is going to be important because otherwise it can be a bit of a hit and miss. Having said that, I mean, I know Grace Harris is explosive, Georgia Wall is explosive, Richa is explosive, but there are
yeah,
also players who can get you like 80, 90 runs, right? It's not like they're like a
yeah.
20, 30 run cameo type batters. They are players who can
Correct.
play, get that kind of
And
big
we have
innings
Deepak
through.
back.
So
Yeah,
it
sorry.
shouldn't
I
be
think
too much of a concern for them.
No, I can see that. Yeah,
so. We'll just get back to where we were. I think we have just discussed the overall strategy and strengths
yeah.
and areas of concern, weaknesses that we think this team should watch out for.
I think the spin bowling is one of the areas where they can improve.
I, th- I think now we have an issue at Shayan's end, maybe.
We lost
So,
Shah.
so maybe Esel, if you would like to take this up. So he's back.
Yeah, is my internet gone now?
Uh,
No, wait. I think my internet. Yeah. So
yeah.
yeah, I was just saying that I think that spin bowling is a bit concerning, especially when you look at the other teams, because they've gone ahead with Prema Rawat, who clearly Malolan rates really highly, their new head coach, and he's compared her with Georgia Wareham. He says that she's the
Yes.
Indian version of Georgia Wareham, but without the batting, which might, I mean, maybe in terms of attributes that is true. Who knows? He's seen her from closer quarters. I have not been able to follow her play all these games right at the domestic level, but that is a lot of expectations to have from an inexperienced player. Ideally, what you want is such a player should be a backup or be the second spinner. You don't want that spinner to be the leader of the attack. So I think that is a bit of a concern for RCB for me. And I just don't understand why they couldn't go for someone like Eccleston. It still baffles me
Yes.
that in the WPL, Eccleston is going for 85 lakh. Like that was just the funniest thing in the entire auction. I just could not believe it. When I
The
saw it
world's
late, I
number,
wasn't following the yeah.
yes, the world's number one T20 bowler
The
doesn't get
best
that
bowler
much.
in the world who can bowl in every
Yes.
single phase, who is
Exactly.
attacking the stumps.
Even
It is
death bowling
impossible
also,
to.
for that matter.
Yeah, exactly. She is good in every single phase of the innings. Can
And
bat a
also
bit
a
as well
handy
at number
batter,
eight.
to be honest,
Exactly.
because I think she won a match against RCB last year, if I
Yeah,
remember
she did.
correctly.
Exactly.
Yep.
She did. She
The
did.
33 runs that came from
Yeah,
her,
yeah.
and
You're right. You're right. I remember that.
so
Yeah.
even with that, I think
Yeah,
nobody
they
actually
so
went for
with
it
spin,
because
I feel like they've missed a bit of a trick. Shreyanka obviously is a very good bowler, and she can bowl at the death as well, which gives them a lot of flexibility in that regard. She can bowl in the middle and the death. But the concern with that, I would say, is that she's also coming back from a long this thing break, right? So
long
we
innings,
don't really
yes.
know the level of her performances in the longer. And obviously, it made sense to retain her because for the future, you want to keep a player of her talent and ability. And she's a Bangalore girl, so that also helps. But I think apart from that, in the WCPL, when I was looking at the numbers, she won that WCPL and she was pretty economical, but she wasn't taking any wickets. She just took one wicket in like 16 overs or something. So I think that will be one area that might be concerning RCB a little bit. So it will be interesting to see if they'll be tempted to go with Lindsay Smith at some point, right? I think that is where
Yeah.
that aspect of it all comes in because Lindsay Smith, we know, gets that drift early on when she's bowling in the power play, where she's a very interesting bowler to sort of dissect in some ways. So let's see what they're going to do about that.
Agree with you on this. And like, it's still coming back to the vision of the franchisee, since we know that there's a very high probability that the ownership might change. But we've seen that since 2023, they haven't interfered much. So, like, they have given pretty much the free hand to Smriti because they saw like one kind of debacle they had in 23. So, what do you think is going to be their vision from here onwards as far as the franchisee is concerned?
Yeah, I think they're going to want to settle down a bit, like in terms of their team, because they've had a few. I mean, they've let go of a few of their key players, right? And they don't have Perry in this season. I think one of the key reasons that they did retain her is that they want her there in the coming seasons. They want her there in the future because they see her as someone who can kind of guide the players around her, right? I think the addition of players like Georgia Wall shows that they are looking to the future a lot, and they're looking to kind of build that core group of players like like a team like Mumbai has done, right? We discussed how they basically kept the same kind of squad together. So I think that will be their kind of vision, and the spinner that Shayan mentioned as well, very young,
Yeah.
right? And giving her opportunities now would mean that in the coming seasons, at least, even if she doesn't produce the results now, that she will have that kind of impact going forward. It's almost like you're picking a star before she becomes a star, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Because you see the potential in her. So I think, yes, of course, they want to win this season, but they're also looking kind of long term.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And Shayan, like your top three the players to watch out for as far as
Players to
RCB
watch
's
out for. I think Georgia Wall definitely. I think an attacking batter like her opening the innings with Smriti will be very interesting to watch the sort of dynamics that form between those two players. Right. I actually went for the Lucknow. There was this game I think between UPW and Lucknow. In Lucknow last year, and Georgia Wall scored 99 not out in that. So I've seen him play live as well. So I mean that was a pretty solid innings in all honesty. And if she's going to play really well, that will be a very interesting player to watch out for. Lauren Bell on Indian pitches. She hasn't played a lot of T20 cricket in India, but she's obviously played in the ODI World Cup, and she was good. She was fine in the ODI World Cup. I wouldn't say she had a great
Yes.
run, but in terms of economy rates and everything, she was like all right, not a terrible season for her. And she can obviously swing the ball both ways, and she can bowl the wobble ball as well, I think, if I'm not wrong.
Yes.
And I think there was some technical change as well. I don't quite remember those notes. I had made those notes during the Women's World Cup. But I think she basically entirely changed her style of play from, she was, I think, bowling whatever direction of swing she was bowling in, she completely reversed that. So maybe you can tell that she is a player who thinks about the game and, knows how to adapt to different sort of situations. And of course, as Ronak also points out, Nadine de Klerk, I think that is a great pick. So I think these three players, more or less, yeah.
And I think Nadine, I think, kind of raised her stakes after the World Cup. Also,
Exactly.
the kind of
Yep.
Yeah.
finishes she gave. And still, if you would like to add on to that, any player from your side to watch
Yeah,
out for?
for me, the big one is probably Nadine de Klerk, right? The kind of depth she can add to the batting, and I don't think she has to bat that low down the order as she did for South Africa.
Exactly.
Number
She's
8, I
someone.
guess.
Yeah, I think number 8, number
Like
9
Klusner.
sometimes.
She was
Yeah,
doing a
almost like
Klusner for them.
She's someone who can have a massive impact on the game
Yeah.
with the bat, and as a bowler as well, right? You've seen her being that kind of. She may not look like the most economical bowler, but is
Yeah.
someone who can pick up wickets and strike at different phases of the game. And I think another one is Richa Ghosh, right? Richa Ghosh, I mean, I
Yes.
don't know, I might be biased because I pick her in every kind of conversation we have, whether it's India or RCB. But you look around the world, how many wicket keeper batters can do what she does?
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And with Elisa Healy not even there in this WPL, so I think she now almost tops that chart also. So
Yeah.
totally agree on that front. So moving on to our next team, like already been to the finals 3 times and not been able to lift the title yet. And it's been like as if they just know that they how to reach the finals, but not been able to cross the line. And this time around, we know that Meg Lennon has already gone to UP Warriors, so she'll be captaining there, and we will be having a new captain now, Jimmy Rodriguez this time around. So a lot of changes from their perspective also. So it's still like your take on
Yeah.
their overall history. So how they've been doing it for the last 3 years, reaching finals every time.
I think they've been really unlucky, right? Like if you look at the 3 seasons, you could argue that they were maybe the best team in at least 2 of them, right?
Yes.
Until they got to the final, and but see, that's the thing about big tournaments, right? Whether it's a World Cup or the WPL, it's not necessarily about finding the best team and crowning them. It's about who can perform when the stakes are the highest, right?
Exactly.
And they haven't been able to do that in the finals of 3 tournaments in a row. And that will be the area that they'll want to improve on, where they need to find a way through those pressure situations. And like looking back, you've got a captain like Meg Lanning, who's done it all, right? Has been in the most pressure situations, has come through them, has been successful, but you weren't able to achieve under her. So it's going to be a massive challenge, I think, for Jemmy and this squad. But fortunately for them, they also still kind of have more or less like the key players are still with them, right?
Yes.
They've got Marizan Cap, they've got Jemima, and they've kind of added, I think, some interesting choices into that 11 as well, like or 11 or 15, that I'm sure we will discuss in terms of players to watch out for.
Exactly. And I think one area where they struggled last year also, even in the finals, if we talk about this, was the death over batting. So if we look at the stats as compared to the other teams also, they are at 0.82 in comparison to 1, if we say the average. So they've done pretty badly in that aspect. So like Shan, your take on this, like any overall strategy, tactical changes they would be making this season to maybe fill this gap? Because we saw in the finals also, after a blazing start, they just fell off.
Yeah. I mean, the WPL honestly feels like a cruel joke on them, right? I mean, making 3 finals and not winning it a single time, and also losing close finals. Like the last time they lost, I think they lost by 8 runs. Even the first final, I remember it being fairly close-ish. I don't think it was like a
Close, yeah.
absolute dead rubber. Yeah, and the second game was where they were dominating RCB for like the first 6 overs of the innings, and then RCB spinners
Yes.
took over and completely destroyed them. And even that game ended up going to like the last over. It was not like a very straightforward chase for RCB. So I just feel like that has been a bit unlucky for them at times. They've also had moments where they've not really stepped up in those crucial situations. But yeah, apart from that, in terms of strategy, you talk about their death overs being a bit of a weakness. Uh, I think so. So this time they have Chanel Henry, right? I think that is really going to be a game changer, right? Because we know the power that she brings to the table, and I mean, just watching her in the WPL, I honestly haven't followed her career as much. I've only seen her play in the WPL, and whenever I have seen her play, she is
So,
just hitting sixes for fun. It is impossible to
so her,
bowl to a player like that. She can change games so quickly, so drastically. So I think that is a really good acquisition by Delhi to get a player like her. Obviously, even Sneha Rana almost won the game that I went to. Right, I was talking about the game that I went to watch in Lucknow. She almost won that game for RCB with some death overs hitting, and we saw in the World Cup as well that she can chip in with the bat. And Alana King, of course, that a player of her talent usually can bat much higher up the order, but in a team like Australia, she comes far lower down. So they have those sorts of players right at the end of games that can do the job. Obviously, not having Annabelle Sutherland, I think, is a big miss, big miss for them because of the quality that she brings. Even though, funnily, her WPL batting hadn't been good at all. She hadn't, really cracked that yet in the WPL or even just in T20 cricket. Her batting, I think, is still coming along a bit, but we know the talent that she has and the ceiling that she provides. So a player like her, not having her is still going to be a huge loss. But Alana King was a brilliant signing to replace her.
Yep.
You now have a world-class leg spinner with you.
so Omkar shared the stat with me. Like Chanel Henry has a career strike rate of 197. So that's
What?
like that's like insane. So that's the kind of numbers she brings on table. So something which is very fascinating, and I think this has been an Achilles heel for Delhi as far as the last season is concerned. So I think they have done really well in kind of filling in that gap, and let's see how they pan it out. So what, according to you, are going to be the strengths of DC this time around? SL, like so, your two, I would say 2 or 3 pointers on that.
Yeah, I think top order batting is going to be massive for them, isn't it? Like you've got, and they've got a big decision to make. I think they've got to pick
Yes.
between Laura Wolvart and Lizelle Lee, which looks tough. I think because Lizelle Lee's had a
Literally.
decent
Exactly.
WPPL. She doesn't play international cricket anymore, but has been consistent in that franchise line. And of course,
Exactly.
Shafali's had a magnificent World Cup, right? So they're going to have a big decision to make. But whatever they go for, I think that opening pair is going to be one of their biggest kind of. It could make or break their kind of tournament, isn't it? Because someone
Yeah.
like Shafali paired with Laura Woolward. Woolward, I know, has a reputation for being someone who starts slower, but with time, I'm sure Shan can give us like a clearer picture of it. But I feel like her strike rate has gone up and is going up, and she's become a more attacking player. And of course, they've got the likes of Jemima at number 3 is another player who's done well against Sri Lanka in the most recent T20
Yeah.
series as well. She's kind of shown that it's not just the big hitting, right? It's also about knowing your strengths and
Playing
being
the
able to
gap,
kind of
playing the
capitalize.
field.
Yeah,
Yeah.
capitalize and still score at a great rate. So I
Yeah.
think that top 3, top 4 is going to be very crucial to their chances.
Marin Karp is
Yeah.
also there. So even I
Yeah.
think Nikki Prasad, the under 19 captain, she has also been
Yeah.
pretty much the stable middle order player. So now they've added Chanel Henry, so that adds a lot of value. Then you have Sneh Rana at 7, Alina King maybe at 8. So
Yeah.
lot of options. I think one thing is if they have Lee, then the wicket keeping part is pretty much
Exactly.
covered because we
Yeah.
don't see any other proper wicket keeping options. And like, then Tanya Bhatia becomes their only option as far as I would
Yeah.
Yeah.
see. And they have Mamta also as a backup keeper. So
Hmm.
that also I think would be a major decision
Consideration,
for them
right?
upfront. Yes,
But
totally.
just
And it's a very
imagine
valid point.
Laura Woolward not featuring in a playing 11. It's
I
really very
think they will
ridiculous,
have to
right?
make that sacrifice, to be honest. Like as much, and so actually, I was doing this thing for Best of Cricket where they were asking me for the most runs and those sorts of things. So I think my gut feel is that Laura Woolward is finally going to have a breakthrough season in the WPL, and she's going to prove her abilities in T20 cricket as well. As Estelle said, we know that she can score fast now in one day cricket. We've seen that in the World Cup, but I think in T20 cricket there's still some more scope. Of course, she scored 100 against Ireland very recently. In the WPL, her strike rate wasn't as high as Lizelle Lee's, and they were both opening the innings as well. So, but I think you just have to make a sacrifice in this case where you know that Laura Woolward is a quality player, world class player, like a wonderful person to have in their dressing room because of the experience that she brings to the table. But I just feel like they have to go with Lizelle Lee for the simple reason that you have firepower at the top and your wicket keeper is sorted out there. Then you can play the extra batter or the extra bowler depending upon what you prefer.
So one point I would like to just bring on table your opinions on this, considering the fact that she did well in DY Patil also. We saw what she did in the finals.
Oh yeah,
So a
very
lot of
good point
matches
actually.
being there. So how would that matter?
Yeah,
Red
no,
soil
that's a
wicket,
good
a
point.
little bit of bounce, and she has shown her skills on that because although she played spinners also really well, because considering that we have known that
No, she's a very
uh,
good player overall. Yeah.
yes, exactly. So how much of that would be a factor in basically choosing? Because in World Cup we saw what she did on these on this ground particularly.
Yeah. So I actually didn't complete my last point that I was making. That I said that
Yeah, yeah.
I actually felt that Laura Woolward was going to score the most runs, but I don't know if that will be true if they play with Lizelle Lee, right? So I just picked Meg Lanning ultimately because that's a safe pick. But the point being that this is going to be a very difficult decision for them to make. And the point that
Yeah.
you bring about the DY Patil is very valid. Obviously, she scored hundreds in the World Cup knockouts. And then even after that, in those tournaments, you could just see that she added that power hitting aspect to her game, and she was targeting that mid wicket zone. She was able to hit sixes against the spinners, and she's just consistently scoring at a fast pace without really looking troubled or out of control or anything like that, which is the hallmark of a great batter, right? She's already in, like, she's I think what, 26, 27, but she's already one of the greatest batters to have ever played the
Yeah.
women's game. If you just look at the numbers, just an incredible batter. Both her and Smriti, I think they are the two batters who are going to dominate all of the run charts for the next decade or so. So
Yes.
so my point is, can they find a way to play both of them? But then they're going to have to compromise on the bowling. They can't.
Bowling,
They
yes.
can only go with one of Chanel Henry or Alana King, which will be a bit of a concern. And they do have good Indian spinners as well. They have Sri Charani, who was very important in the World Cup
Yes.
winning title for India. And even apart from that, in the WPL last year, they were. That is where they scouted her from essentially, and they brought her in the Indian team immediately after that. So you know that she's a very good player, and so they have that left arm finger spin, they have leg spin, and they have the off spin option as well in Minnu Mani if they want to go ahead with that. So let's see what they decide ultimately.
Totally agree. And even also, they've picked up a young pacer, Nandini Sharma. So we were having a
Yeah.
discussion on that also just before the show.
Yeah,
Quite
yeah.
an interesting, I think, take. So any weaknesses that you think they need to maybe address, Estel? So what is your take on that? So any particular weaknesses that Delhi might have to be wary of?
I think maybe we can look at that middle over batting, um, whether they are able to kind of kick on. It's Shan spoke about the death overs batting, right,
Yeah.
in the previous seasons where they've struggled a bit. So the middle overs are going to be really important, and I think as Smithy is going to be important to RCB. I think Jemima is going to be crucial to DC's chances, particularly in that middle phase, right? Where she can keep things kind of moving. We've seen her do it for India plenty of times, right? I don't just mean like turning the strike over, but someone who can find the boundary every over without taking too much of a risk. So I think if at all that will be a concern for DC, where can they kind of score quickly. The other is they have lost. They've lost two of
Shikha
the most
Pandey.
experienced bowlers, right? They've lost Jess
Yeah.
Jonathan and Shikha Pandey, who were kind
Exactly.
of their big wicket takers
Shocks.
in the previous 3 seasons, who kind of carried the bowling attack in the 3 seasons where they saw so much success. So replacing them is going to be, how they choose to go about it is going to be interesting, because as Shayan said, like if they do opt for, and we often see teams kind of prefer strengthening the batting as opposed to the bowling, right? So if they do opt for Wolfart and Lizelle Lee, then one of Shinelle Henry or Alana King is going to miss out. Probably Alana King, given that Henry's that explosive low middle order batter, right? So in
Yeah.
that case, that wicket taking option is maybe going to be a concern.
Totally resonate with that. And it's I think now they're going to build their fast bowling core from the scratch, so that's going to be a big challenge for them this season. So
Yeah.
something to maybe look out for also. So from a franchisee's vision point of view, Shan, since you have followed them very closely over the years, so what do you think is going to be their legacy going forward?
I think they just ultimately want to break the duck, right? They just want to win a title. It's been a similar story to RCB and Punjab in some ways, where in the men's team, in men's cricket also they've come close at times, but not ended up winning. But in the women's game, it's different in the sense where they make the final and they don't win. In men's cricket, they make the playoffs and they don't win sometimes. So it's just been like if you've been a Delhi fan, I think that's going to be a life of pain and hurt. So I'm sure the owners and the management are aware of that fact. Even the players themselves, like you could just see that they want to really break the duck now and finally go on and win a title this time. So I don't really know what else are they going to have as their vision right now. Just win something as soon as they can. I know that's the vision for every single team ideally, but right at the moment they have good. What I really like is that they have two world class Indian batters in their top order. I think with that really helps with the branding perspective as well. You have Shafali and Jamima. Both of them are World Cup winners as well right now. So if we are going to look at that side of things, I think they're pretty much covered as well. And they have Nikki Prasad, who has obviously been only India's captain at the under 19 level, and it will be interesting to see how her T20 game shapes up. I think last season she wasn't that explosive or impactful yet, but maybe they're just backing her on quality and talent in the long run.
Pretty much resonate with that. So, so your pick for the three players to watch out for?
Yeah, definitely. Jemima is one. As I said, I think she's going to have a big impact on whether they have success or not in this season. And just to touch on like strategy or their vision, I feel like for them, this is a new chapter, right? They've moved on from Meg Lanning. They built that foundation on her leadership, and now they've moved to Jemima Rodriguez, who doesn't captain India but has kind of always shown those leadership qualities, right? So it's a new chapter for them. So I think she's going to be crucial to their success in the way she goes about things because she's kind of grown in her game as well. Alana King, I think I was very surprised to see her not being picked in the auction, and then it was good to see her kind of make her way into a team. As a leg spinner, she's always going to be a wicket taking option, right? And I
Yes.
think that is something that sometimes is kind of not really paid too much attention to because a lot of the focus is on the batting with these teams, right? So as a wicket taking option, I think she's going to be crucial. And of course, Chanel Henry. I'm just excited to see how she goes with the bat. Like, to be honest, more than anything
Yeah,
else, I'm
exactly.
excited to see how
You
she
just want to
goes.
see her bat. That's all. Yeah.
Nice. So, Shan, any player you would like to add?
I think there's this young player called Diya Yadav, right? She's apparently from
Oh
Haryana, the
yeah.
same state as Shafali Verma, and is known to be like this explosive batter. Obviously, I haven't seen her play with my own eyes, and I'm just going by the articles I've read on Cricinfo, and they seem to rate her. So I think it will be very
I've seen
interesting to
some
see how
clips.
if they can get a, yeah. So did you find anything interesting in that? What sort of shots can she
Uh,
play and all that?
like almost, you can say the early Shefali, and she's just 16 to be
Oh,
honest. So that's
Mm.
yeah,
like amazing and pretty
yeah.
explosive and uses her feet well. Just few clips.
Hmm.
I've not seen her entire batting as a whole, but
Yeah,
a lot has been written about her yet
yeah.
already.
Exactly. And it will be interesting to see if they can get her in the team in some way because obviously it's going to be really tough with the way this team is shaped up. Maybe in place of Nikki Prasad, they could consider a player like that. But then again, even then, you want her to be more of that opener or that top order sort of player who can maximize the power play, right? So
Yes.
maybe what they can do is slot her in at number three if they want to take a risk and get Jemmy at four and Cap at five. But I think that will be too bold. That's definitely not something they're going to start with. That would be unless they rate her very very highly, in which case we will find out soon when we watch the actual matches. So yeah, I think that's one player definitely to watch out for. And uh, Nandini, I think probably because she's a fast bowler now and she will have a pretty important role to play in this team. So let's see what they can do with that. They've got some decent overseas players as well, right, for the backups. They have Lucy Hamilton as one of the backup players who's
Yes.
she's more of a bowler, but she can also be a bit useful with the bat. So I mean, let's see how these sorts of players, if they have to play any role in the tournament, what they are going to do.
And pretty much, I think that's as far as DC is concerned. So moving on to our next team, UP Warrior. Almost the kind of thing I would say LSG did with their men's team. Just they retained one player, and that was Shweta Sharawat, and the rest
Yeah.
everybody else was let go. And then they built the team from the scratch and looking really good this time around. So, uh, Shan, anything you would like to add about their history coming from your own hometown and how you look forward to them?
Has never really rooted for them, you know. I know they're from my hometown and all of that. But because I was an RCB fan from before, it only made sense to carry over from that and just stick to supporting them. But I've seen them play. Obviously, that last game where they actually ended up defeating. They didn't have a great season. They actually finished last year in the WPL, but they beat RCB in that game, which was a pretty important one for them. But they've consistently not been very good, right? Like they were third, fourth, and fifth. So they've played one eliminator back in the very first season of the WPL. But apart from that, they've not really been that sort of team that, actually goes on to challenge the other sides and, cause issues for them. They had Alyssa Healy, who wasn't available last time, but so it's not that they absolutely didn't have any players in there. I think it's just that sometimes form and those sorts of things also play a role, and they cause issues in a way where you back quality and all those sorts of things, right? But sometimes it might just not come off. And I felt what went wrong with them was back in 2023 when the first auction happened, they just weren't able to get as many of those quality players compared to some of the other teams. Like you can just see how Mumbai, RCB, Delhi, they
And
were able to
local
build that
players,
sort of
right?
core players, and even the local players, exactly. Yeah. So I think that was a bit of concern for them over the years, but now they're looking very good. I like their auction this time.
Yes. So, is there anything you would like to add here? So, with the legacy and with the overall strategy that you see from UP?
Yeah, I mean, they, as Chayan mentioned, they had like three poor seasons, right? Like even the season where they finished third, I think the other teams were really, it's just that they were much
Yeah.
worse. Like Gujarat was much worse, right?
Yes.
And the auction strategy was not that great in those first three seasons, where they had power. They had Grace Harris, they had Kiran
Grace Harris.
Navgire, they had
Navgire, exactly.
Alyssa Healy, they had Sophie Eccleston. So they had some big names
Hmm.
internationally, but they didn't have the local players to kind of back that up. Just going back to something that Chan mentioned for DC, right? When you've got two proper like quality Indian players in your top five, that automatically
Exactly.
gives you kind of an advantage going into just picking your 11, because you can focus on the bowling side of things, right? So for UP this time, like DC, it's a new chapter. They've basically built from scratch. But having said that, they retain only Sweta, but they did bring back four of the other players who they had, right? I
Yes.
think
Yeah.
Eccleston is one, Deepti
Deepti.
Sharma, Kiran,
Yes.
and one more player, I think. Um,
And they
who
really
is
broke
it?
their
Kranti
bank
Grout.
for the green. Yes, Kranti
Yep.
out also. And
Yeah, and Kranti Grout, right? So
Kranti, exactly.
yeah, so they've kind of, and I think that's strategically, like you've got like Deepti Sharma has had a brilliant World Cup,
Yeah.
yes.
and has been consistently one of the best utility players in the world. Sophie Eccleston, there's nothing to say about her caliber, right? As a bowler, best in
Yeah.
the world, consistently the best in the world. I know Deepthi might be ranked number one in the ODI or T20 format, but I think if you ask around, like, Sophie Eccleston has consistently
Yeah.
been the most difficult bowler
Yes.
to face, right, for most batters around the world. So, um, in terms of that, their strategy has been to rebuild, and I really like the option of going with, like, when you want that kind of thing, you go for someone who can lead you into that new era, right? And they picked Meg Lanning. I really like that pick, because a lot of people will look at it and say, okay, look, Meg Lanning hasn't played international cricket for this number of years. She's not had, I mean, she's had a good WBBL, but she's not had like a massive
Yeah.
impact. And she's maybe someone, because she hasn't played international cricket in the last couple of years, who has fallen behind in terms of, how the game has grown, right? But I think the value she adds as a leader is massive, and we saw that for DC as well, right? The way she led them, and you don't have to look at their results. You can, I think, listen to some of the interviews that players have given, someone like Shefali, how much she's spoken about the impact Meg Lanning has had on her career and how she goes about things. So I really like that in terms of strategy, because I feel like they're trying to build a team. They're trying to get to a place where, they are really competitive year on year. And a key part of that is the leadership. Abhishek Nair obviously has
Yes.
had success
Exactly.
on the men's side of things, and then you bring in the most successful women's captain, right? So, yeah.
One thing I would like
Yeah.
to ask here, because considering that it might be a strategy from DC to let go her because she was not that keen to captain because of all the stuff that's been going on the personal front for her. So she was more keen to come on as a batter. But now we see her leading UP Warrior. So how much of that would now be kind of, I would say, impacting DC? Because I'm just assuming that might be one of the reasons why they didn't back him that much because back her that much because earlier there were certain reports that she might not be up for the captaincy role again. So she wants to basically ease her into a WPL as a pure batter. So do you think so? That's now changed for her now, considering that she's going to be the captain of UP Warrior, or uh, it's just maybe I'm just thinking too much into the things.
I think first of all, I don't think she would have agreed to it if she didn't want to captain, right? But and I suspect they would probably have had discussions with her before, actually, or kind of found out before actually bidding for her whether she
Hmm.
still would be interested in that kind of role. It's different, I would say, for UP versus DC, in that now DC is in a spot where they've reached the final 3 times and the only success is now to win the title, right? Whereas
Hmm.
UP have had like 3 bad seasons, and if they can build on that, it would be successful. And I think Meg Lanning has shown with DC that she's that is one of the roles she excels in, is kind of building the youngsters up, in giving that stability and kind of assurance and stuff like that. So I suppose in that way, if you really look into it, this is a more suitable kind of team for her to be in and lead than maybe a DC.
That's a brilliant point because she's
Yeah.
someone who understands how to build a culture, how to basically
Hmm.
bring things up. So that augurs well for UP as far as their future is concerned. Quite a brilliant point again. So,
Yeah.
uh, Shan, your uh, like pointers about their strengths, where you see them doing well this season, because there were certain areas of concern. Their middle order batting was really bad that last time around. They were
Yeah.
0.74 as compared to one, the data that we have.
Exactly.
So now with I would
Yeah.
say a new Deepti Sharma with the kind of success she's had in the international setup,
Yeah.
how much would that change this season?
Yeah, I think first of all, they have to sort of, work out the combination that they have to go ahead with, because obviously Lanning is going to open the innings. And if they go ahead with Lanning and Litchfield to open the innings, then they'll have Navgire at 3. And then you have Hurleen at 4, which I don't think is ideal. Then that's a lot of batters in the top 4. What they can simply do is, I think, as Cricinfo also had in their expected playing 11s, they just put Litchfield at number 4 because she's a brilliant player of spin. You know that she can play the field. She has those sweeps
And
and those
also,
reverse
like, I
sweeps and
think
whatnot. Reverse pulls even. Yeah.
his
Sorry?
WBBL strike rate was 115, if I remember correctly, Litchfield as well. So, like, the kind of success she has had at the international level somehow hasn't transformed that much in WBBL because this season her strike rate
I
was
think
115.
so. I think even
So,
in the WPL, Litchfield hasn't yet been able to prove herself, and I think the thing with this is we don't always want to judge younger batters on their raw numbers, because we know that the talent they have at any point, they can have that one season where they explode, and then from that point onwards they're more consistent in the way that they play. And obviously the main thing with Litchfield is that she's a brilliant player of spin and she has good experience of playing in Indian conditions. So if they use a player like her in the middle overs, that should solve some of UP's issues from the last season. And with Navgire, we know that she is a fire power player. She's going to maximize the power play and hit as many boundaries as possible. So with a player like Lanning, who's who's a world class anchor, obviously, I know some of her seasons weren't as good in recent times in franchise cricket, but in the recent WBBL, she has been in very very good form. And now with Lanning opening the innings with Navgire, it could be like a Lanning and Shafali sort of a partnership for UPW in some ways. And then with one down, I think you have a player like Pratika or Harleen that you can back. you
Yes.
can't have too many anchors, because then what happens is if two of them get stuck, then the scoring rate really, really dries up. And we've seen that with India in the World Cup, right? That's what was happening with them when Harleen was batting at number 3. That's why a lot of us kept saying that we wanted Jemmy at number 3, because then what happens is that even if Pratika takes her time and builds a long innings, this constant strike rotation and going for the longer haul, what that basically does is that the run rate is not stalled at any given point. So they have to try and avoid that here as well, because they have Lanning and one of Harleen or Pratika, who I think should bat at number 3, one of those two. So that is one part of it. Obviously, Harleen is a very good fielder as well, so that will be interesting to see who they go ahead with ultimately between those two. Harleen has more T20 experience than Pratika, so they might just go ahead with her as that number 3 option. And they even have Shweta Sehrawat, right? That was their only retention, but we don't really know where she's going to slot in this team, right? But I think that's fine. That's not really much of a concern. And then someone like Deepthi at number 5, and then they'll need Doughton to step up at number 6 in that back end of the innings and sort of that over 12s, over 13 onwards period where. And I know some people have brought up in the comments that her recent form hasn't been great. I haven't been able to have a look at that, but I think just based on her WPL numbers, that's a good acquisition, because she's a 6 hitter sort of player and can do the job in that particular phase, where the second half of the middle overs and then the back end of the innings. So playing with Litchfield, I think that will be very interesting for them. So that should improve their middle overs quite a bit.
Also covers up for the wicket keeping slot also, I guess. So they get more
Yeah,
flexibility
sorry.
with Litchfield. With Litchfield, I
Is,
think
is
they can
Litchfield
also
going
then.
to wicket? Yeah, some people are saying in the comments that Litchfield is probably going to keep wickets. That is an interesting one. I'm not so sure about whether that will happen. If that happens, I think that's a great one. But they have
Yeah.
this player called Shipra, I think, who Cricinfo also had as their number 7, who's done well at the domestic level. So let's see whether they back her or they go with Litchfield as the wicketkeeper and go in with another batter or another bowler. So
Quite interesting. And now they have Shikha also in
Yeah.
their setup. So that brings a
exactly,
lot of
that's a brilliant
experience.
pick. Yeah, yeah.
Yes. So any weaknesses still that you think they need to look out for? They need to maybe cover up for that? It looks,
No,
look
I
a very
think
solid squad.
it does look a
Yeah.
really well-rounded squad, I think, on paper, and it's also difficult to kind of look at weaknesses in that it's basically a new look team, right?
Yeah.
It's not anything like we saw in the previous 3 seasons. So I think in terms of weaknesses or what could potentially be a weakness is something that Shayan named, in that if they do end up with like Meg Lanning and maybe a Harleen in the middle
Yeah.
in that 6 overs
7
to
to 11
12 over
phase.
stage, yeah,
Exactly,
that
exactly.
phase, that might be a concern for them. Lanning has had a good run in the WBPL, so she might be scoring at a bigger faster rate in this WPL, but she has, although been successful in terms of the run charts, hasn't been scoring quickly, right? Or as quickly as maybe like a Lizelle Lee or players of that kind of power and caliber. So that would be a concern, I think. But otherwise, if you look at it, like, seriously, like, they've got great left arm spinner, a great off spinner. They've got the most successful pace bowler in the WPL or Indian pace bowler in the WPL in Shikha Pandey. So the bowling pretty much also is covered. I think that area will be the one of concern. So selection might be actually their biggest kind of worry, the combinations they go for.
Yeah.
Yes, because they have so many amazing players sitting on the bench also, like one of the best bench strength in the tournament
Yeah.
as far as team is concerned. So that's also
Rohit
because
Trayan.
if you have so many people and certain times
Yeah.
you have to be very careful about your selections also. Valid point, I would say. So Shan, again, coming back to the vision the franchisee would be having. So I think we've given some snippets of it already in our discussion. So
Yeah.
anything you would like to highlight further? Because one point is already there that they want to build a legacy. They have not been
Yeah.
that consistent in last 3 seasons. So
I think definitely, first of all, uh, every team wants to win, but you want to become consistent. You want to be on the path to win, right? Like, winning is not just a process where you turn up on a given day and be like, okay, we are going to win this season. Sports can work that way. It's very random in that sense, but ideally what happens is you plan and then things come off for you and sort of what we've seen with RCB in the men's team in some ways, where from 2020 they got in Mike Hessen, and slowly we saw that they were making the playoffs more regularly, and then they got Andy Flower and so on and so forth. And we've even seen a similar story with Punjab in the men's team, right? This year, last season, they didn't win the IPL, but they came very close, and we saw that with Ricky Ponting coming on board. They had a much different strategy and a lot more role clarity, not like the Punjab of old at all. So that is the sort of legacy that I feel UPW would be looking to build. And obviously, now that they have a brilliant captain coach duo in Meg Lanning and Abhishek Nair, right? Like, that's as good as it gets, and with the sort of players that they've filled in every single role, and they have experienced players as well on their team, right? It's not that they just have young players. I mean, if we just count once, they have Lanning, and they have Deepthi, and they have Eccleston, and they have Shikha Pandey. So that's 4 players who are like pretty experienced when we talk about international cricket, and just playing this franchise circuit as well for a long period of time. And there's lots of young players who have done well in the World Cup very recently. Obviously, Litchfield, Kranti God, all these sorts of players. We know that they're very talented. So I just feel like they constantly have lots of options, and we haven't even spoken about Chloe Tryon or Charlie Knott.
Yes.
That is the level of impact that they have. So even if Deandra Doughton is not in form, they could just consider getting in someone like Chloe Tryon in that lower order role, right? That gives them an option with the spin bowling as well.
And the kind of World Cup she had. So I think she must be really itching to get into the playing 11 and make an impact
Exactly.
this WPL. So SL, your pick for the top 3 players to watch out for as far as UP is concerned?
Well, I think I have to. I mean, I've named the captain, I think, every time that you've asked me that question. I think, again, I have to say Lanning will be someone who is definitely one that I want to see, because in the past 3 seasons, or at least in the last season, although she was getting the runs, she was not maybe getting them at a rate that she would be satisfied with. I mean, we know Meg Lanning to be, perhaps or arguably the best batter produced, right? But she wasn't kind of living up to those numbers or that reputation in the previous seasons. But she's had a good WPL, and although she's not been in the international cricket fray, that will give her a lot of confidence because it's just been completed, right? And of course,
Yes.
as a captain, always good to watch, and that impact is kind of the impact she has on other players is very visible. So she's definitely one I would like to see, and the others have to be, I mean, I'm going to name the regulars, right? It has to be Sophie Eccleston, Deepthi Sharma's had a brilliant World Cup, right? Basically, the star of that tournament for India in what was a very good tournament for a lot of their players. And Sophie Eccleston, who didn't have a great World Cup, and will want to kind of prove herself or do better in this tournament. And she's, I think, if I look back at the 3 seasons, she's someone who's had a lot of frustration with the way how things have gone with UP. They've not been able to really deliver on their promise and the type of players they've had in their lineup, right? So finally she's got a team. I think you can't ask for better than the squad that they've assembled, right? It's a very, very good squad on paper. So those 3, I would say, are going to have the biggest impact on UP's success.
Brilliant. And Shayan, anybody you would like to add?
Yeah, I think as Sumit also points out in the comments, Asha Sobhana is a great pick, right? Having a leg spinner of her quality who basically won RCB that title in 2024 with a lot of other spinners. And again, in this attack as well, she will have the left arm finger spin of Sophie Eccleston and the right arm off spin of Deepthi Sharma, right? So that is 3 bases absolutely covered. You can get 12 overs just out of those 3 bowlers on a regular basis. So I think even if, let's say, we account for form and those sorts of things, even if they can get 10 overs consistently out of those 3 bowlers, that will be really, really incredible for them. And I think if are there any interesting uncapped players? I think Pratika Rawal, I would say, obviously not an uncapped player, but Pratika Rawal in T20s is something that I would be willing to watch, because we know that she's that sort of player who's absolutely classical batter, ODI, perfectly suited for ODI cricket. Whether she will be able to adapt to the tempo of T20 cricket will be very interesting to see. I don't think that she cannot do it. She definitely has the ability to be able to do it, because we've seen in the World Cup that she can play those innings. She doesn't play those fast innings very often, but she has those shots available to her where if she sets her mind to it, maybe she'll be able to adapt. And the other young player that Sumit also brings up again is Jeet Risha, who's one of India's most important players in that under-19 World Cup winning title, right?
The 19 World Cup.
And she can bowl a bit of leg spin as Yeah, can bowl a bit of leg spin as well, opening batter. I think definitely that is another player to watch out for. Let's see how they'll be able to use her if they will. What if they just put her at number three? That might also be something they can consider.
Amazing.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yes. So that's the beauty of UP's team this time around. They have so many options, so many combinations.
yeah.
So we can see some amazing things. And that's why I think they need somebody like McLaren at the helm of things, somebody who understands and can handle so much of talent gracefully. Because otherwise, we know that having too many options can also spoil things certain times. So I think, look, moving on to our last team, GG. So what is your take on it, as far as their legacy is concerned?
I think before this season, maybe you could have compared them with the UP Warriors in terms of like the squads they've been able to assemble. They've got a few in the past, few big international names, but really haven't been able to build on that in terms of local players, right? And I think unfortunately, unlike UP, they have not been able to kind of assemble a squad that looks like it will be threatening the title this time around as well. Um, I think they need to change their uniforms first, the colors. That will go a long way in making them a better team because that orange, anyway. Yeah, so it's going to be tough for them, I think. Just looking at their past, right? I mean, Beth Mooney and Ash Gardner, two of the best players in the world. And they've had
Yes.
them continuously, but they have not been able to build around them and get a proper team going. And that's going to be a concern this season as well.
And I think Ash Gardner was injured also last season, if I remember correctly, for some
Mm.
part of the tournament. So even that was a concern. And we have an update on another injury as far as GG is concerned.
Yeah.
So Yastika Bhatia has been ruled out of WPL. And as far as
Mm.
the BCCI directive, they cannot even have a replacement. So
Oh,
how would that impact their balance now? Since when we were discussing the teams in the morning, Shayan, so we had her at
yeah,
number
I
three
had.
since
Yeah, yeah.
Mumbai had already released her. So how would that impact now as far as their overall squad is concerned?
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, they still have Mooney to keep wickets, so that is not going to cause issues for them in that aspect. Otherwise, sometimes balance really gets affected,
Mm.
and they still have Sophie Devine as their other opening option, and they can obviously go ahead with Danny White Hodge as well. But I think going with Devine makes more sense because you have because you have a bowling option as well, proper bowling option. What they can do is there's this player called Anushka Sharma who's been a really good middle order player, and she's apparently a six hitter, and she's also come from Madhya Pradesh, which is a place where a lot of women's cricketers and even men's cricketers are coming in recent times and really performing well, specifically in the shorter formats, T20 cricket and white ball cricket in general. So I think that they might be tempted to go ahead and play her in the middle order maybe, and what will happen then is Ash Gardner will be a lot more important with the bat, and even Georgia Wareham. And
Yes.
while they are definitely talented players, you don't want so much workload on those players because they're going to be very important with the ball as well. You just want those sorts of players to be able to bat freely and have a higher impact on the game. So yeah, I just don't think that their middle order looks very satisfying in that regard, right?
Because if you look at the last season, I think the only area where they did well was the middle order batting. So their
Exactly.
power play batting was like 0.68 on the scale of
Exactly.
1 if you compare with other
Hmm.
teams. And even in death, also, they struggled a little bit. So power play, they were
Hmm.
above par. So now this
Yeah.
season,
Middle
with a lot
overs they
of
were above
such.
par. Sorry.
Yes, so in the middle office, yes, they were above
Yeah.
par. So that complexion might change this round, and they have a youngster also, and Bharti Fulmani, who
Exactly.
had a strike rate of 150. So, how
Yeah.
would you think would be like they would be actually looking for this season? So, what can be their strengths as far as the season is concerned?
I think their opening is obviously still pretty much of a strength, relatively at least, because what you have is two experienced players who can play the situation and can also bat fast. Beth Mooney, I think, has been in good form in the WBBL, and Sophie Devine, we know she's like a six hitter. But even then, Sophie Devine is like right at the end of her career. She's basically retired
Yeah.
from international cricket, and I haven't actually looked at her numbers in the WBBL of late, but she will obviously be very important, and they have Danny White Hodge as well. They can't go with both White Hodge and Divine because then what will happen is
Mm.
they will have to compromise on the bowling, and I really don't
Yes.
think they should be able to do that. And Gardner will play. She's the captain, right? So Wareham can't miss out in this team. The way this team is
Yeah.
constructed, Wareham has to play, because then you have that off spinner in Gardner, leg spinner in Wareham, and that left arm finger spinner in Conver, right? So I think that is something which, that is the trend that I was telling Deepak in the group as well, right? This is something which
Yes.
every team has pretty much followed. They have in their playing 11, they have one of each type of spinner, which is where I feel RCB have lagged a bit with obviously having an inexperienced leg spinner in Prema Rawat. But just speaking generally, Gujarat have a good spin attack, I think, if they go ahead with both Wareham and obviously Gardner has to play. So their spin attack looks pretty good. And when we talk about their pacers, they've got Renuka, who's not had the best of time in the WPL, but we know she's a very talented bowler, and if she gets that movement early on, she can just destroy teams in the power play. The problem is she's very sporadic in that sense, a bit like Siraj in some ways. I would compare her with in the men's game, where she's the rhythm bowler. The day she is on, she's absolutely going to destroy you. But when she's not, she can go for plenty of runs as well. So, and as an RCB, as someone who's followed RCB quite closely in the last 3 seasons, I've seen that firsthand. So, I just feel like apart from that, uh, they also have Tita Sadhu, right? So if she's going to
Yes.
play, she has done pretty well for Delhi, I think, in the WPL, but that's still a bit of inexperience. And the other pace bowling option that they can have is obviously Sophie Devine, who can come in and give a few overs based on the
So what about
situation, based on what
what
they
about
need.
Kashvi Gautam? Because whenever she plays in WPL, she becomes the talk of the town, but some
Yeah,
never
of course.
been able
Kashvi
to.
is going to. Yeah, it actually slipped my mind, but Kashmir Gautam is very, very important for them. And she can actually bat a bit as well, I think, at number 8. She can give them
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
crucial lower order
Yes.
hitting type. So she's obviously been a very good player in the WPL. And so Kashvi Gautam and Renuka can start off their innings and they can bowl in the power play. Probably Sadhu can bowl in the middle overs, and Divine also can bowl in the middle overs, and they have their spinners as well. So they'll have to mix and match a bit. They have the bowlers definitely. I don't think their bowling attack is weak or anything like that. They just have to be a bit more clear about the roles that they want to assign. I feel
Mm.
looking at this team.
So, is there any weaknesses you see and any major concerns as far as Gujarat is concerned, where they would maybe need to bottle up a bit?
I think
Yeah,
the
I
middle order
think
batting is the
as
concern, right? Sorry.
yeah, middle order batting, and as we pointed out before as well, right? If you look at the lineup, they don't have Indian batters. So they're going
Hmm.
to be very dependent, I think, on that opening partnership, right? It's got to be Mooney and Divine who are making a majority of their runs. Mooney, I think that's a reasonable kind of expectation to have, because generally she's one of the players who does make a majority of runs for whichever team she plays for. Divine, I would say, uh, has been kind of on the way down, as Shan mentioned. She's in the latter part of her career as well, so that'll be the concern. But she did have a good WBBL, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken. So they are coming into this tournament in form. The weakness or the concern for me would be the batting, in that um, they will be very reliant on that opening pair and maybe Ash Gardner, right? Um, and also the fact that, like, if you compare this team to the other four, it's very much more inexperienced in the bowling front as well. Um,
Yes.
they've got a lot of promise in, like, players like Titas and Kashi Gautam, like very, very promising players, but they don't really have that experience, which is not, I mean, I'm not saying that, you can't succeed if you don't have experience, but it is an area of, I think, would be an area of concern for them.
Agree on that. And I think, again, maybe Ashley Garden would have to do a little bit of heavy lifting again, just to basically get all the moving pieces together and to just fix the unit so that all the holes get filled up brilliantly. So that's going to be a challenge. So, from a franchisee point of view, what would be their long-term vision, considering that in 3 seasons they've been pretty much all over the place, as you mentioned earlier, also in 2023, they were like almost the worst among the five. So what would actually be the vision for them taking this team forward or the legacy forward? Is it your take on this? Like, how would you see
Okay.
them? Apart from that uniform color change that you already mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned before, right? I think it's very difficult with Gujarat, because I feel like UP has been lucky or smart in the way they've built this their squad for this season, right? Where it's been an overhaul, but they've kind of, it's a complete overhaul where they're looking at, like, they've it feels like they've got a clear vision of where they want to take the franchise. I don't know if you can say the same for a team like Gujarat in just the way that they've gone
Yeah.
about composing their squad, right? Divine is one person we spoke about. Maybe she's being picked on, leadership, and the experience she brings. But other than that, they haven't really been able to acquire any, like, apart from Renuka, any big Indian names. And I think that
Yes.
is a big concern for teams, right? Like, if you look at the last 3 seasons,
Yeah.
the teams that have been successful are the teams that have had, like, big Indian players, like the important Indian players. So that is going to be, I think that is where I feel like the vision. I don't know whether it's very clear for Gujarat, whether they actually know where they want to take the team in the next couple of seasons, because sometimes you have to accept that you're not going to win this season, right? But if you do have like
Yeah.
that long term plan and you know what you're building towards, you can go towards that. But I just looking at the composition of the squad, I don't know if you can really say that about Gujarat. Maybe I'm wrong, and in 3 seasons they'll be the best team in the league. But it doesn't seem like they have kind of an ironclad idea of what they want to do with this team.
And I think it's been the case with the men's cricket also. Like teams, those have been able to build a very strong Indian core, have been able to build a legacy. And even if we talk
Yeah.
about the recent transformation, for example, Punjab also in
Yeah.
2025, they pretty much banged on the Indian talent. If you look at the top
Yeah.
six, almost everybody, all of them were Indian. So that I think
Mm.
makes a huge difference. If you have a strong Indian core, you can build around it, and then you can have a lot of flexibility around the squad also. So a brilliant
Yeah.
point. And three players, Shan, from your side, to watch out for as far as Gujarat is concerned.
I think Wareham definitely. I mean, as someone who's followed RCB, her bowling and even her batting was very. I think it's a bit disappointing to not see her in RCB colors anymore in some ways, if I have to say it like that. But she's obviously a very good player, and as a fellow leg spinner, I want to see her dominate. I've said the exact same thing for Alana King. Now I'm just backing leg spinners here. I'm just like leg spinners should rule this league. Forget about everybody else. But yeah, I think Georgia Wareham definitely is one player to look out for. Apart from that, Full Bharati Fulmali, she was really good back in the lower order in that number 6, number 7 sort of role last season. It will be interesting to see whether they want to push her higher up the order and give her more opportunities with, and probably have Anushka also in the middle order, or whether they are going, or you know what else they can do is they can have her in that lower order and just back Gardner and Wareham to do more of the work through the middle overs with the bat. Obviously, they have Kanika Ahuja as well, who has. It just seems like they've picked up a lot of players who've played for RCB before. Kashvi, sorry, not Kashvi, Renuka, Kanika Ahuja, and Wareham. So that thing is there. But yeah, I would say Wareham is one of those players. Then I would say Bharati Fulmali, and then probably Kashvi Gautam. Yeah, I would want to see how her bowling develops and whether she can be in contention for the Indian team as well.
Exactly. And is still anybody you would like to add?
Yeah, one name that we haven't mentioned at all is Kim Garth. I don't know whether she
Yeah,
will
Yes.
feature in
Again,
the
coming from
11.
that's
RCB.
the thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
RCB,
good point.
right? Um, I don't know if she'll feature in the 11 just because, they've got a lot of, again, found themselves in a
Exactly,
position where they have to fit in players because
players.
they
Lot of
lack
fun.
that
Yeah,
Indian talent, right? Or that Indian quality. So I don't know if she will feature, but if she does, she can be a massively important player for Gujarat. And she's shown, I think, time and again, someone who flies under the radar but has an impact game after game for Australia, right? So I
Hmm.
think if she does get that game time, she could be a very influential player for Gujarat.
Quite a, I think, valid point also. And I think that's it as far as the teams are concerned. We'll just quickly go through certain questions. So one by one, I think requesting Omkar to also give me an idea like how many questions are there, and so that we can also wind it up quickly because at 4:30 we're planning to go live with our Hindi version of it.
Yeah.
So first question, Andy says, how will wickets play in Sri Lanka in T20 World Cup? So if they are slower and low scoring, aren't Pakistan and Sri Lanka bigger contenders than currently expected? So I think the men's cricket is here to rule as far as the section on the women cricket is concerned. So maybe we can take it this up quickly and then can move on to the next question, more related to the women's cricket. So Isel, if you would
Yeah, I
like to
think
add.
I'll take that question. So we don't really know how the wickets will play. Currently, there's a series ongoing between Sri Lanka and Pakistan, and in Dabullah, where the pitches have been a bit slow or tacky, but there aren't going to be games in Dabullah. So I would expect them to be fast, high scoring tracks in at the SSC, Pallakele, and Premadasa. In terms of Sri Lanka and Pakistan being contenders, as someone who follows Sri Lanka cricket, I'm going to say this now. I don't think they will be major contenders at all. Pakistan, on the other hand, I think has some promise, but it's. I don't think we have to look beyond some of the main teams like India, Australia, going to be the favorites going to this tournament.
Agreed on this. So next question, we can take this up now. So Shamnar has this question. Do you think people gravitate more towards men's cricket simply because the game looks and feels different, and that difference makes it more immediately appealing for some fans? Sorry, didn't mean to sound sexist. So like SL, if you would like to take this up, because I think what I have seen in my friend circle, the interest towards the women cricket has really gone up significantly because the aesthetics, the overall competition, everything is pretty much now, I would say, up there as far as the international men's cricket is concerned. So if your take on this, and then we can have a similar viewpoint from Shayan also.
Yeah, I think it's all visibility, right? I mean, if I ask the two of you when you started following the women's game, I don't think it had anything to do with like the kind of how it looked, right? It's just that you started seeing more of it on TV, on social media. It became more
The
Exactly.
accessible
WPL.
to you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it became more accessible to you. I think that's the main reason that a lot more people are gravitating towards women's cricket. I wouldn't say that more are gravitating towards men's cricket. I think it's just simply that men's cricket has been in our eye line for much longer. Like
Oversaturating
I mean,
also, I would say.
yeah, I would say even for me, I didn't start following women's cricket until maybe 2013, 15, 17, right? Where it became more common to see it on TV. Before that, it wasn't the case. And I was very much following primarily men's cricket or exclusively men's cricket. And I don't think that had much to do with how the game looked, but rather the fact that it was more accessible, right? Because I think a cricket fan generally, you would watch a under 17 game as well, right? You would watch a six-a-side tournament. You would watch the Hong Kong Sixers. If you generally, I'm saying generally, maybe
No,
not
no.
go into as analytical detail as we do for,
Of course.
but you would watch it because it's accessible to you, right? I think
Yeah.
it's more to do with that than anything else.
And technically, also, some aspects are completely different.
Very
If you talk
different.
about
Exactly.
so talk about swing bowling, it's more prevalent in women cricket. So technically, it's more challenging from that perspective.
Yeah.
So it might not be that pacey, but from skill point
Yeah.
of view, it demands a completely different ball game altogether. Plus, I think you get more side spin also because of the space of the ball. A lot of other aspects to it also. So, Shayan,
25-yard circle. So the
yes, your
runouts also
take.
come into the picture. So I feel like I have almost followed these two as sort of different sports in a way. I mean, I know they're both cricket, but there are massive technical differences in the way the women's game and the men's game shape up. And so for example, when I first started following it properly was 2023 when I started working with Jared essentially, and the WPL came into the picture. So we did this piece where we basically looked at the differences in the women's game and how the patterns are a lot different. Basically, what happened in the men's game at that point was teams would slow down after the power play in T20 cricket, right? But that wouldn't happen in the women's game. In the women's game, after the power play, batters would still keep scoring faster. And now with ODI cricket also, we've seen so many different sort of players, right? Like for example, just take Lindsay Smith, a player like her. Just watching her is so fascinating. I think if you just forget about men's and women's cricket and all those things for some time, just focus on the actual game. There are lots of different things that you can learn from women's cricket, And that in itself is a very entertaining thing to watch and learn, both from an analytical perspective as well as from from a team support point of view, where you obviously have these WPL teams now, and now a lot of support for women's cricket is growing across the board, not especially in the subcontinent, but even apart from that, you see that players are a lot fans are a lot more invested in how their players are going and how their team is performing in the women's game. So I think overall it's just the experience has become a lot better because it's visible to us. As Estelle said, we can see it a lot more on our TV screens, so we are just following it a lot more. And the coverage has also definitely improved a whole lot
Yeah.
more. Like for the longest time, I had no idea about any of this. It's just that now we are seeing so many people, obviously. All these publications that are doing the work, there are many people who are doing the ground reporting and actually going and
Yeah.
talking to those players, those coaches. That takes a lot of effort. Then obviously there are people who, obviously, shameless plug, and I'll talk about best of cricket here, where we are doing more of the analytical stuff. And obviously we have all the good areas and cricket by JB sort of guys, and they're all covering women's cricket in their own different ways, and because they know that this is the future now, right? And it is a brilliant product to watch and learn from.
And for me, that pivotal moment was that Harmanpreet's inning in 2017
Yeah,
that just completely blew up my
that
mind. So to be
exactly.
honest, I rate it as the best Indian innings in a knockout match
Okay, agree,
of an
completely
ICC
agree.
tournament. So I
Yeah,
think Yuvraj's 30 ball 70 would be
hmm.
maybe the next on my list. So it's almost like they both
Exactly.
compete in my head for the best. And she just completely changed the whole perspective about women cricket with that innings. And that's why everybody was rooting for India in that finals also. And now I think with this 2025, that final win will be a pivotal moment as far as the
Yeah.
ground adoption of women cricket in India is concerned. And obviously, and I think that will impact global adoption also. So moving on to the next question. So Shubham Mishra has this question. Love from Hong Kong, well run, researched and organized podcast here. Thanks a lot for this. Is there a fun off or the start of a regular women cricket WPL podcast? So I think Shayan and Esil can answer this. So how regularly we're going to do this?
As much as we can. I'll be pretty happy to do it as many shows as possible. Obviously, I have my other commitments as well with Best of Cricket, where I'll be doing those pieces. But I would love to just do lives as much as we can, post match lives. Maybe do like a weekly roundup, or maybe do two lives a week where we talk about where all the teams are placed, what have been the most interesting things that we've watched. Obviously, a lot of these things will depend on the bandwidth of all three of us or anybody else who might want to come in and give their opinions. Obviously, Jared himself is like one of the pioneers of covering women's cricket, and so if he also has some sort of ideas, I think I'm sure we'll be able to incorporate those. But yeah, I would love to talk about the women's game as much as I can. That's what I wanted to do in the World Cup as well, which I'm very grateful I got the opportunity, both from good areas as well as for Best of Cricket, and now with Combox also and things scaling up and all those sorts of things. I think I just feel like now we are going to have 6 months of like brain rot T20 cricket. We are going to see the WPL, and then we are going to see the men's T20 World Cup, the IPL, the women's T20 World Cup. So, and I don't mind it. Like, I'm here for it, guys. Let's just see how that pans out.
Exactly. And Isil, what would be your take on this?
Yeah, obviously, like Shan said, we'd be happy to come on as much as we can, right? It's about, I think, finding the bandwidth and availability of the other stakeholders. But otherwise, like, we'd love to make it a regular thing.
Yeah.
Yes. For me, like the reason why I pushed for this, why I kind of reached out to both of you also is like one of our members on my channel, Vinny Nanda, she kind of kept on messaging a couple of times. So it kind of started capturing my imagination also. So as a creator, it's my responsibility to deep dive into women
Hmm.
cricket also because I've been watching it on the fringes, but never been able to gather courage to basically come up with a proper show around it. So for me, it's a completely new experience, and the interactions that I've had over the last couple of days to learn different things, to pick up different things from both of you as far as women cricket is concerned, and to kind of package it into a form of this podcast is one experience, I would say. And really, if possible, we'll definitely take this forward.
Yeah.
Not sure whether we can cover every match, but we'll definitely try to cover majority of them.
Yeah.
So, if any other question is left, so I think we have another question. So, Blue Eagles, my OP or previous chart, men's sports was easily available. Once women games uh, being a dyslexic, I think this would be a biggest challenge for me to kind of pick up these words. So it will be ubiquitous, and everyone knows characters and narratives. People will
Yeah.
embrace it. So I think pretty much we have already discussed this point. So anything you would like to add on this, Isel? Maybe since that we've already mentioned the visibility has kind of changed the
Yeah.
perspective towards women cricket.
Yeah, no, I agree with the comment, right? As I said before, it's not. I don't. It has very little to do with what we perceive as the quality of the game, but more that it's visible to us, right? It's accessible to us more than it has ever been before, and that means more people are able to see and more people are drawn to the sport as a whole. So, yeah, completely agree with it, and I think people have already embraced it. And as you rightly mentioned, the fact that India have had success will also go a long way in kind of pushing women's cricket to a wider audience.
Agreed. So I think we're almost done with our questions. So uh, pretty much, I think overwhelming experience with so much of data, so much of inputs, points. But I hope this really sets me right for future also. And also from Combox perspective, this is a kind of commitment from our side where we would be a more holistic as far as the cricket coverage is concerned. So the parting pointers from both of you. So Shan, so if you would like to add certain pointers.
Yeah, I think I just want to follow the WPL and as much as I can and try to bring the best possible coverage on whatever platforms I get the chance to. I think these teams are a lot different also from the previous seasons, so it will be interesting to see the team dynamics with. Obviously stuff like how Lanning is going to now play against Delhi Capitals. That will be the sort of narrative that some people have already started talking about in a piece that I was reading. So that will be very interesting to see. And one thing I don't like as much as they're still playing it in only the two grounds in Navi Mumbai and Vadodara. Probably if they played a few games in Lucknow, I would like it as someone who's living here. But even apart from that, Delhi, obviously we know why Bangalore is not part of all of this because of what happened last year. But apart from that, even then, picking DY Patil is still a pretty good option because that is like the home of women's cricket in India, and we've consistently seen good crowds. And like now that is an iconic stadium as well because of India winning the World Cup. And I just hope we get to see good balanced pitches, good quality cricket all around. Obviously I would want to see higher scoring games as well because that's entertaining to watch, but you want to see players adapt and be able to tackle different sort of situations. You don't just want to see bowlers or batters dominate and make it a bit boring. Somewhere in the middle I think is a good mix, like maybe something like 2025 IPL. I wouldn't mind watching something like that because I think that had different elements to it which made it entertaining to watch.
Agreed. And it's your 2 cents on this.
Yeah, as Shayan said, I don't think I have as much a stake in who I support as he does. I know he's a
No,
very
even
big
I am not
RC.
very hardcore into this anymore. Like,
Now
of course,
that now
I'll
that
be
RCB
happy.
has won titles, he's kind of fulfilled. Um, I just want to see competitive season because what we've seen in the past is you've had kind of two stragglers not really competing with the top three teams. So I hope that by the time we get to the latter part of the tournament, is all five teams are kind of in the running still.
Brilliant. I think one point that Shayan has already mentioned, if we can actually have home and away matches, like dedicated home
Hmm.
grounds, so that would be a major, major, major step forward because that will bring in a lot of, I would say, fan loyalty also and
Exactly.
legacy also. And that would, the kind of thing that has happened with IPL over the years. So a lot of
Hmm.
adaptation will happen on the ground, a lot of academies would come up. So maybe the scouting system would improve. So that will increase the overall engagement of the women cricket at the grassroots level also. So looking forward to that. Amazing inputs, amazing podcast. Love doing it and hope that I kind of take this forward in a better way and learn a lot more from this. So signing off for today. And in 10 minutes time, I think we'll be joining on our Combox Hindi channel along with First Empire to do the Hindi version of this. And it'll be a different one
Yeah.
because we'll be doing the team maps. So it'll be more
Yeah.
data driven. And here we just wanted to basically build the perspective around women cricket to begin with. So thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for this.
Thanks a lot for having me, Deepak. It was a pleasure.
Thanks, guys.